How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Down podcast, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, we are back on a Monday. The Bears play tonight, Monday Night Football. It is our Week 9 pregame show. We're going to be breaking down everything that you guys need to know in Bears versus Steelers before the Bears head to Heinz Field tonight. And at the end of the episode, we're going to be making our Week 9 picks, talking about whether the Bears can bounce back and get closer to 500, or if the Steelers will continue to contend in an AFC playoff picture. Before I introduce myself and my co-hosts, I would like to say it's been a couple days since we posted, but we are back. We're going to be taking a couple days off here and there as we've limited our weekly content a little bit, but we're still trying to bring you guys the most comprehensive Bears coverage on the web. So if you haven't already, wherever you may be listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, drop a like, subscribe, follow. We're going to be bringing you guys Bears content throughout the bye week next week. All right, I'm your host, Chris Malpe, today to talk about a Monday Night Football primetime showdown. I am joined with my co-host, Parth Shaw. Parth, how's your weekend been? How's it going?
Doing pretty good. Had an exam early on in the morning at 7:30 a.m. So, been up for a couple hours now. It's noon time here, so around 8 hours till game time. I'm super excited about this one. Feeling good. I'm excited for some Bears football. It was weird to not see them play yesterday, but it's gonna be a good game tonight. That's for sure. And we'll talk about it a little bit more now.
Yeah, a really wonky day of football yesterday. The Bills going down at the
Lots
hands
of
of the
upsets.
Jacksonville
Yeah.
Jaguars. The Cowboys getting blown out by the Denver Broncos. Just quite the weird day of games
Kansas
overall
City
yesterday.
barely beating the Packers.
Kansas City barely beat Jordan Love. The Rams, frankly, looked pretty horrific against the Titans, who didn't have Derrick Henry. So a wild day of football yesterday, and we'll see if the Bears can add to that today and hopefully have an upset win. But let's jump right into this one and start how we normally start these pregame shows, taking a look at the opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 3-5 Bears are heading to face the 4-3 Steelers tonight at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:15 p.m. Central Time on ESPN at Heinz Field. ESPN's matchup predictor gives Chicago a 31.7% chance to win this one, with Pittsburgh at a 68% chance. The Steelers are favored by a touchdown, 7-point favorites, with the over-under for this game pretty low at 39.5 points. Taking a look at the injury report before we get into anything else, Eddie Jackson is doubtful for Chicago. Alec Ogletree as questionable. Khalil Mack is going to be out for this one. David Montgomery, we'll get into it a little bit later in a specific talking point, but is expected to be activated from injured reserve and play tonight. He has traveled with the team. For the Steelers, they only got two real big injury report players. Eric Ebron is listed as out, so they're going to have the backup tight end, Pat Freiermuth, subbing in there, the rookie. And then B.J. Finney, their center, is listed as questionable. Let's take a look at the Steelers' last couple of games. They are on a 3-game win streak. They took down the Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, and Cleveland Browns throughout these last couple of weeks. Offensively, they've been a pretty good unit, 18.9 points per game, 340 yards per game for them. Big Ben Roethlisberger still sticking in there and playing good football. He's averaging 254.4 passing yards per game. And then the rookie Najee Harris, obviously the biggest part of that Steelers rushing attack. They're averaging 86 yards per game on the ground. Taking a look at the Steelers defensively, they're allowing opposing teams to 20.3 total points per game. The Bears are only averaging 15.4 a game. Defensively, they are allowing 362.3 yards per game, 256.3 through the air. Should be interesting. Justin Fields is yet to eclipse 210 passing yards in a game, and they are also allowing 106 yards per game on the ground. I think we'll see a good mix of Montgomery with Khalil Herbert there tonight. Quickly taking a look at Pittsburgh's depth chart. Already talked about the front two, Ben Roethlisberger and Najee Harris. Also some pretty solid running back depth with Kalen Ballage and Benny Snell Jr. At the wide receiver position, Juju Smith-Schuster is out for the year. They're going to have Deontay Johnson paired up with Chase Claypool and James Washington. Pretty good receiving corps there in Pittsburgh. Already mentioned it once again. Ebron's out. Freiermuth's going to play for them. They really like what he's able to do. And he's played some pretty good football so far this season. And then they've got fullback Derek Watt, obviously, brothers of TJ Watt, who's also on the Steelers, and JJ Watt of the Cardinals. And then their offensive line, a couple pieces that I guess I should point out. Try Turner, Kevin Dotson, two pretty solid guards that they have there. Taking a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, They've got some maulers up front, and the Bears' offensive line is really going to be at a disadvantage against a pass rush that has been top 5 in the league in terms of rate of getting to the quarterback, in terms of getting sacks. Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt, two of the best to do it in the league. Also, Devin Bush and Joe Schobert, as well as Alex Highsmith at that linebacking position. Taking a look at their secondary, Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds, a great safety tandem for sure. And then at cornerback, Cameron Sutton is going to be teamed up with Joe Hayden, someone who's been great at doing it for quite some time in this league. All right, sorry about that technical difficulties there, but you heard me run through the stats with the Pittsburgh Steelers, as well as give a little bit of an overview of their team. So, Parth, let me know, what do you think about the 4-3 Steelers heading into this Monday night showdown?
They're definitely talented. This team, like you said, they're on a 3-game win streak. They started off the season a little cold, but I think they've warmed up, and that's because of Najee Harris. Their offense is surrounded and is led by Najee Harris, this rookie running back out of Alabama, who's absolutely taken over the league.
He's a beast, man.
He's a beast. What he's done for the Steelers so far this year is he's taken them on their back. Big Ben has definitely had some games where he's made some questionable decisions or has played questionable. So what Najee's done to this offense has been incredible. And this Bears offense, on the other hand, has been a dumpster fire. The Bears offensive line will struggle against this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line, highlighted by TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward. Like you said, those two guys are leading this defense, currently a top 5 defensive line. The Bears, however, can find some success in the passing game. This Pittsburgh defense on the back end has struggled. They're led by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who had a really good year last year. However, he is struggling a little bit this year. So the Bears definitely can open up the passing game a little bit today. I think Justin Fields, again, is just going to keep improving, especially from what we saw last week. I think the Bears offense is finally finding a little bit of groove and momentum. And this is a game where they're going to have to build on against the Steelers defense, who's been playing really well the last couple of weeks, especially their defensive line. Like I said, they get to the quarterback. They get to the quarterback multiple times a game and do it very quickly. And the Bears are a team who has struggled against giving up sacks, whether that's on the offensive line or even on Justin Fields at times for not reading the coverage correctly or just not the correct communication. So the Bears definitely, we're going to have to watch out for that Steelers D-line, like I said. On the offensive side of the ball, like I said, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, another threat on this team. He's been having a really good solid year. He's got the deep threat. He's got the speed, and he's got some really good route running. He does have issues with drops, which is good for us, I guess, but you got to watch out for him. He's had some big games this year and definitely can blow up anytime.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the two weapons that Pittsburgh has primarily been going to on offense. Obviously, Najee Harris has had a pretty good season so far. Ironically enough, I think I'd say him and Khalil Herbert are probably the top 2 rookie running backs in the league so far, and we'll see them face off tonight. But Harris has 128 carries, 479 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He's also made a pretty big impact in the passing game for that Pittsburgh offense. Deontay Johnson, also one of the more reliable receivers in the league, a little bit undersized, but he's definitely able to make up for it with his route running and quick change of direction. He has 40 catches, almost 500 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the season. So, I think this is going to be a defensive game. I mentioned it earlier. The over-under set for this game by Vegas is only 39.5. I think if the Bears can get to Ben Roethlisberger, they could be in for some success. I'm a little bit worried. We saw how they struggled last week against the 49ers without someone like Khalil Mack. But Ben Roethlisberger hasn't had a great season by any means. He's been playing a little bit better in recent weeks. He's got a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So pretty solid for him. But I'm more so worried about the Bears offensively because I think it might be a little bit of a setback for Justin Fields after what was a pretty good week last week. Obviously, this Steelers defense, they're going to bring the heat. They're top 5 in the league in stats and sacks. TJ Watt's one of the best to do it. Cameron Hayward, also someone who deserves recognition. Devin Bush, also someone who plays really well up there in that front 7. So I'm a little bit worried about how the Bears offensive line is going to hold up. We've seen them struggle against teams like the Buccaneers, against teams like the Rams, against teams like especially the Cleveland Browns. So, I'm a little bit worried. The Steelers defense is definitely good. It's so tough to predict what the Bears offense is going to be able to do on a week-to-week basis. It's really tough to rely on them. And David Montgomery coming back is another big factor that we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, I think the Bears can definitely stop this Steelers offense, but I don't see any reason to believe that the Bears offense will really be able to get going. If I'm being completely honest with how much belief I have in the Bears offensive line and looking up what they're going up against tonight, I'm definitely a little worried for Justin Fields, but hopefully we can see him continue to play good football and continue to improve on a week-to-week basis like we've seen him do so far. And maybe we could be competitive tonight in this one. You'd figure are going to have to rely on the run once again with Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery, who's coming back because the Steelers are, I believe, allowing over 100 rushing yards per game to opposing teams. So, Parth, instead of talking here about three key matchups, which we normally do, and talk about the keys to the game, let's talk a little bit about a big storyline heading into tonight. David Montgomery is expected to be activated off of injured reserve and come back tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to come back until after Chicago's bye, which would have slated him to return around week 11. But he's going to come back in week 9. Seems like he'll play tonight. Matt Nagy was pretty confident that they're going to have Montgomery back in this one. So, Parth, I want to ask you, do you think the Bears are bringing back Montgomery too early? And what type of a role do you expect him to have tonight against the Steelers?
I wouldn't say too early. I just don't understand why we're bringing him back the week before a bye week. He can get another week of rest, and just get more healthy, I guess, and become more 100%. But if the Bears believe he's 100%, then so be it. I'm not one to judge that. I'm not David Montgomery. I'm not his leg. I'm not no trainer there. So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But if they feel like he's ready, he should be used 20 times a game. Like I said, Montgomery deserves 20 carries a game whenever he's on the field. I don't know if they're going to do that with him today, obviously, especially just coming back from an injury. And if it is a little bit too early, they might, just limit him and use Herbert more, who's obviously done really well in Montgomery's replacement. But yeah, I'm a little shocked that he's playing this week. Definitely happy. Montgomery's an absolute superstar. He's becoming one of the better running backs in the league. I mean, the first 4 weeks of the season, I think he was leading the league in rushing yards with 309 yards and 3 touchdowns so far this year. So he's definitely got, I guess, 8 more weeks to go to add on to those. I think he still hits 1,000 yards this year. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do for us this week.
Yeah, it was a really good start for Montgomery this season. As you mentioned, 309 rushing yards through, I believe, what was only about 4 or 5
weeks,
weeks.
3.5 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks. And I'm excited to have him back. At the end of the day, I do trust the Bears medical professionals. I think they realize that there's a bye next week, and he would really have to be ready for them to bring him back. So hearing Matt Nagy talk confidently about having him back and saying he thinks he's going to play does make me feel good. I think there's a good chance they might have him on a little bit of a snap count tonight. Khalil Herbert has proven to be reliable, and with Damian Williams out, as well as Tariq Cohen, obviously still, we might see him splitting carries with Khalil Herbert, and I'd be totally fine with that if you don't want to go 100% with Montgomery. But regardless, I'm still happy to have him back. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the league. I also think Khalil Herbert's one of the most underrated running backs in the league. As we move forward down the stretch, I'm excited to see the 1-2 punch that he can create with Khalil Herbert, who you would assume is going to get that promotion to running back 2 over Williams with Cohen still out. So I'm excited to have Montgomery back. The Bears have relied so much on the rushing game this season. Having running back 1 back is going to be good. And also being able to switch it up, bring in someone a little bit more patient with Khalil Herbert is going to be pretty big as well. So looking forward to have Montgomery back tonight. I think he'll definitely play a decently sized piece in what could be a very close game as it moves down the stretch and heads towards the later play, because I personally think it's going to be a pretty defensive game. So done with that, talking about a little bit of a storyline. We are excited to have David Montgomery back. Let's get into what everyone wants to hear, our week 9 picks in Bears versus Steelers. It's tough to project some sort of positive outlight on the Bears right now, just coming off of 3 consecutive losses. But Parth, I'm going to toss it to you. I think we're both in agreement that this is going to be a pretty defensive game and could come down to a possession or 2 down the stretch. And you also believe in Justin Fields, who's played well last week and has shown that he can play well. A couple of weeks ago, the Bears in primetime, normally where they get embarrassed. Parth, what is your pick in week 9?
I'm taking the Bears. I think the Bears can pull off the upset this week. I felt it all week. I feel like I haven't picked the Bears in a while. I got to do what I did. I mean, I don't have much to back it up. I think the Bears offense will have a good game this week, though. I think Justin Fields will use his legs like he did last week to move the ball. David Montgomery, who's going to be back in the game, I think he makes an impact regardless of how many snaps he gets. And this Bears defense is going to be able to shut Big Ben down. I'm not the biggest fan of Big Ben. I think he's obviously gotten a lot worse due to age and just his Tommy John surgery and everything that's gone on to him. I have a lot of respect to him, but I feel like he's washed up. He's getting up there in age, and the Bears will be able to stop this Steelers offense. Like I said, they're run through Najee Harris, and as long as the Bears can do a good job in containing Najee Harris, I think the Bears win this game. I'm gonna take the Bears 24-17.
All right, I'm also taking the Bears. I'm going 24-21. But I agree with you about Big Ben. Here's an interesting stat. The last 5 times the Chicago Bears have played on Monday Night Football, they have had either a special teams or a defensive touchdown. I believe the last one was in 2019. Clinton Dix had a pick 6 against the then Washington Redskins, now Washington football team. So maybe we see Jakeem Grant do something tonight. He's almost had an opportunity to break some for a while now. Maybe we see Jaylen Johnson or something make a play in the secondary. Maybe Eddie Jackson comes back to life and does something against Big Ben. But I agree with you on a pin, Parth. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger's that great. I think if the Bears can bottle up Najee Harris, which might be a little bit of an issue, if I'm being completely honest, but I think if they can bottle him up, Jaylen Johnson will be able to cover Deontay Johnson perfectly fine. And I think the Bears could escape with a win. It's a tough defense that the Bears are going up against. I always believe that Chicago's going to have a good run game in these games. That's the only thing that they've shown that they've been consistently been able to do. But, the Steelers are coming in this game winning 3 straight. The Bears are coming in losing 2 games or losing the last 3. But I don't really believe in who the Steelers have beaten in their last 3. I mean, they beat a Cleveland team that's been really inconsistent, and they had a good win yesterday. But they haven't looked great, and Baker Mayfield wasn't at 100%, and the whole Odell Beckham thing was going on. Not to mention the Steelers only put up 15 points. Week before, they barely escape against the Seahawks and Geno Smith, who looked terrible in overtime. And then the week before, on October 10th, they barely beat the Denver Broncos and barely avoided a comeback effort from Teddy Bridgewater. And that Broncos team has looked as bad as ever until week 9 when they beat the Dallas Cowboys. But I don't think the Steelers' strength of schedule, I don't think their strength of wins has been that great. And I think the Bears can stick in this one, and maybe they pull it out. So I'm going to go Chicago by a score of 24-21. Thank you guys so much for tuning into our Week 9 pregame show. If you haven't already, do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe, follow wherever you may be listening. If you're listening in on YouTube, let us know down in the comments who you think is going to win this Week 9 matchup. I'm sure we'll be back either tonight or tomorrow morning talking about the result of this game with our post-game show, so be sure to look out for that. If you want more content from us, head to our website, beardown.com. We're posting columns, articles, and blogs to get you guys ready for all of the Bears games during the season, trying to post as much content as we can during the regular season. That also goes for over on our website, so be sure to check it out and find out more about us and what we do. If you would like to find the podcast on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Bear Down. It's a great way to keep up with us. And finally, you can find the links to our personal social media pages down in the description for myself, as well as Parth. I'm pointing this way, as well as Parth. You can find our Instagram and Twitter pages. It's another great way to interact with us, and you can see our thoughts on all things Bears, all things NFL, and the entirety of Chicago sports. So Parth Shaw, big night tonight. The Bulls play the Nets, coming off of a 2-game losing streak that easily could have been a 2-game winning streak. For what it's worth, 2 tough games against the 76ers, but a lot riding on the backs of Chicago tonight, I'm sure. So any last words before we sign off?
Yeah, no, it should be a great game tonight. The Bulls are playing the Nets. Like you said, they should have beat the Sixers at least once out of those 2 games, I felt like. But yeah, it's going to be a great game for us Bears fans. I feel like we have a chance in this one. The national media is definitely doubting the Bears a lot. I mean, I was surprised to see the line at -7. I thought the Bears are going to be like maybe +5 or +4.5, but to be +7, the bettors definitely don't think the Bears have a chance in this one. So should be a good one for sure. I think Justin Fields has another good game, especially running the ball. I think the Bears are going to start using that as aspect of his game a lot more as the season dwindles. And yeah, should be a great game tonight. So bear down.
Yeah, should be a good one. I think we're so used to the Bears getting embarrassed on prime time, and that would be the worst case scenario
I
tonight.
don't
But I
want
really,
that.
truly do believe that they can stick in this game. I think the Steelers are a decent team. I don't know if I'd call them a good team, but at the end of the day, regardless of outcome, Bears fans are just looking for Justin Fields to be able to continue to play good football and continue to progress himself. So hopefully that can be the outcome of tonight, outside of any sort of result. But guys, it's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Malpe, and Bears fans, as always, stay positive, bear down, and stay safe. And we'll be back sometime within the next 24 hours recapping this game in our Week 9 postgame show. Enjoy tonight. Try and have fun. Try not to get too pissed or stressed out. And that's pretty much it for us, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.